I'm Tadhi Coulter. In 2007, friends of mine and I, we were taken aback by a friend who passed away from HIV/AIDS complications. He was, like ourselves, was a gay identified male, and he couldn't turn to those within his community to find support. The difference of culture within African American communities plays a huge role in determining one's fate and outcome and life chances. I am a proponent and an advocate for those in our community who struggle with identification, representation, and identity politics. I'm about helping as best as I can to save lives, and I believe the two documentaries that I helped to write, I co-wrote and co-produce, speak to these issues of race, gender, and sexuality, co-constitutively.
Church can't be responsible, the politicians can't be responsible. That's right. The Hollywood can't be responsible only. All of us have to be responsible.
Duke University would allow me to better prepare myself for technology, prepare myself for the experimental visual components necessary for the technological world of the 21st century. I think in so doing, I will be able to create media similar to the ones I've already created, whether that be similar platforms of conversations, of family discussion, where we can come together as a community of African Americans and others to talk constructively about issues of race, gender, and sexuality, and the prevalence of HIV/AIDS in our community.
I feel the guilt and the shame. And so a person who's positive, if you got a test, I want to ask you a question. If you got a test for HIV, would you be willing to share your results with someone else?
If you were HIV positive, do you think that you would tell?
No.
You needed to finish that question. Huh?
If you were HIV positive.
I say like my best friend. No!
Tell who? Who we gotta tell? My mama?
Partner.
Right.
Partner who?
Woo.
Is this a new partner or a partner?
Whomever you're dating, and when would you consider telling the person?
Who?
If I was
HIV positive, would you tell him?
I probably wouldn't have sex anymore.
Yeah, I would probably.
I would just masturbate. Because I wouldn't even want to put myself out there and put somebody else's life in jeopardy.
Really, what she's saying, she don't want them going to tell.
Yeah, because I wouldn't tell.
You
wouldn't tell?
You wouldn't disclose your status?
Probably wouldn't.
It's
I
hard to
just wouldn't
say.
do it.
I probably wouldn't. Unfortunately, wouldn't tell. I'd probably like, oh, you might want to put that condom on. No, you need to put on two. Hint, hint.
I'll probably turn into the Virgin
Be like this.
Mary. I'll be like,
Hint. I'm told.
There's Standing in Truth, Breaking the Silence, a conversation which we held among many people in the African American community and the African diaspora, whether it be at the World AIDS Conference in Canada, or whether that be in a small living room with those who could barely speak English. I believe that these are issues that face the 21st century and face many of us in the African American community around how to love ourselves, how to improve conversations around cultural differences. And I think this will allow us to be able to have conversations around issues of race, gender, and sexuality. So Duke will give me the opportunity to create media in creative ways from a hybrid approach that would speak to communities and encourage people to have conversations, to enrich family conversations and dialogue ordinarily that they wouldn't be able to have. For example, in conversations, we have a 13-year-old Kai who speaks to an adult 60-year-old female about ways in which communicating facts about HIV/AIDS transmission. We know that in the inner cities and in rural areas of America, children are having sex in creative ways. And we need ways of talking about this and to encourage families to do it. And media represents one of those platforms which could encourage and stimulate this kind of dialogue.
Sex was communicated through our boyfriends who said, "Give me some." We had no sex education. I mean, when you got about 12 or 13, the boys were after you in the neighborhood. And they just tried to get you to do it, you know? And then, you know, you talk to your girlfriends about, did you do it? Did you do it? What did he say? What did you... That's how you learned. I mean, you learned through all this ways that you shouldn't have to learn.
One of the issues I'm concerned about is I think there's a myth about the black family and what it means to be raised by either women of the house or men of the house in single parent households. I'm very much a blessed person, and part of that has to do with the role of the black church. I'm a firm believer that the black church has helped to make me who I am. What do I mean by that? I mean simply that I think I've learned how to read in the church, number one. So I literally wouldn't be here if it had not been for the black church. Many conversations around civil rights and justice took place in the black church. And so for me, everything I do is related to a principle and ethic of the black church. So in part, my studies has always been very much an integral part of that.
I want my church and the churches in my community to embrace all people because, you know, Martin Luther King, your brother talked about Martin Luther King. There's a quote attributed to King that said, "There comes a time when silence is betrayal."
I have always been involved in the church, and that probably started from my family, and I even got baptized by my uncle. But in the midst of that, they knew that I was a different child growing up. For me, church has always been like this great support for family. Most of my friends who have been involved in church who denied who they were, I knew that they were gay, but some have gotten married, some have died because of denial.
I think I bring to the table a lot. I think I bring both our archival material. I think I bring my sense of embodiment, my character. I'm an advocate of human rights and civil rights of people who have been marginalized by society, and I'm a proponent of justice. I did a lot of research for this project. I set up interviews with pastors, laypersons, people from the CDC, people from Kaiser Family Foundation, entertainment personality, and just a gamut, a plethora of people in the African American community who could be a part of a mosaic of conversation to show that there are many voices in the black community. There are many ways of expressing oneself. I believe that the program at Duke University, MFA, in experimental and documentary art, would best prepare me to continue thinking about these issues critically. And not only that, but unlike any other program, gives me the tools I need to create the media within the standards and conventions of society, as well as be able to be creative. So how do we in the African American community talk about cultural difference and actually be a part of creating spaces where dialogue is possible when we don't agree on issues of race, gender, and sexuality? In closing, I only have this to say. Take a look at the material that I produced. Conversations, a family discussion, sponsored and supported by the Office of AIDS and Intervention in the Los Angeles County of Health, and Standing in Truth, Breaking the Silence. Take a look at those films and see how they serve as an example, a witness to what could be. I want Duke University, the MFA program, to be with me on that journey of creating media where I can look back at the faculty, the resources, to be able to know that I'm a part of a greater commitment to making a change around social justice, around race, gender, and sexuality in this nation and in this world. Give me a chance, and I will show you what I can do.
hand in